Consumers, I've got great news for you. There's changes in what they call the TCPA, the Telephone Consumer Protection Act. More to follow. I'll be right back. Hey, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Inside the Deal Through Michael's Eyes. It's a fresh take on real estate and business in general. My name is Michael Renick, and of course, I am your host for this podcast. I've given my background on future podcasts. I've explained what I'm up to do here. One of the passions I have in life is business being done the correct way. We all have experienced many examples where it hasn't, and we want to talk about that on these podcasts. I have with me a guest who's appeared with me many times, Mr. Michael Henkin. And before I turn on his microphone, I'm going to go through the introduction, which he hates when I do. But Michael Henkin is a man I proudly call a powerhouse of legal insight, located right here in Sarasota. When it comes to understanding the intricate web of legal matters that impact our lives and businesses, Michael is second to none. His knowledge extends far beyond the basics, diving deep into the complexities that many of us find daunting. I have a lot more good things I can say about him, but he'll get even with me like he should, so I won't do that. Michael, welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate you shortening the introduction, and happy to be here.
So I agreed to shorten it for this one. Next time we'll see if I go with a long version. There's so many good things to talk about. But I love having attorneys on. I love having Mr. Henkin on because I have an easy job now. I'm going to read an executive summary of the act that was just passed. And I'm going to ask Michael if he would unpack it for us. So let me just briefly read this. It says the TCPA, like I shared at the top of this is the Telephone Consumer Protection Act, is undergoing significant revisions for 2025 aimed at enhancing consumer protection and curbing unwanted telemarketing communications. That's something I've stood for from day one. The amount of calls that we make are unacceptable. So let me continue. The most impactful change is the implementation on the one-on-one consent rule. On January 27th of this year, 2025, it closes the lead generation loophole. The rule maintains that businesses obtain separate, explicit consent from consumers for each individual company that intends to contact them via robocalls or robotext. We've all been on the receiving end of this. Furthermore, enhanced consent revocation rules, effective April 11th, provide consumers with greater flexibility in revoking consent through any reasonable method. In summary, what this is hopefully will prevent, we're taught in real estate school they actually call it 10 days of pain. When I get a hold of you as a new lead, I'm supposed to call you multiple times over 10 days. And I'm not sure where that makes sense because in my mind it doesn't. We don't follow that. This is going to curb some of that. But Michael, can you help us unpack what that really is saying in plain English?
Sure. So I think in order to really understand the change, you need to look at the world we currently live in and will live in until the change takes effect on January 27th. The world we currently live in requires consent, but it does not require one-on-one consent or any sort of specific consent. So if you go to a website and you say on the website, give me information about this property, you are agreeing and consenting to receive calls from everybody and their mother. So if you're interested in a piece of property, you're telling every real estate agent in the world to call you. You're giving permission essentially to that website who's collecting your information to go out and sell your contact information to as many people as they can. And that, of course, fills up your phone, fills up your contact list. And for you as a consumer, makes you also less likely to provide your contact information because everyone as a consumer has lived through that. We all are very leery about providing our contact information online because of the current world we live in. The change will make it much more specific. So if you go on after, and if anybody contacts you after the effective date of this act, which is later this month, January 27th, they will have had to obtain a specific consent that they have given to your, that person would have obtained from the person they're contacting directly. So no longer will there be a third-party website that's collecting consent that can be used for many different companies. So you go on and you say, I'm interested in this piece of property, have this company contact me, then only that company can contact you and nobody else. And if they break those laws, there's hefty fines, potentially up to $40,000 and change per occurrence. And with any luck, this will do two things, I think, Mike. I think first and foremost, it will protect consumers from unwanted contact. But what I hope it does, if it's effective, is allow consumers the freedom to give their information to companies they do want to contact them without having the fear of getting 1.5 million phone calls. So I think it's a win-win, but really both wins are for the consumer.
It, this is a whole basis, really, why I wanted to do this podcast. This is my number one pet peeve, if you would, in terms of all of these unwanted calls. Why they teach that it's okay. I'm really glad to see this change. Just a quick story. I'm standing on stage in Vegas a few years ago talking about how to treat clients that come into your database, internet leads, if you would. And we're taught, we actually call it 10 days of pain. I've never subscribed to that. I don't believe in it. I think it's wrong. We need to respect people that come in this way. But what had happened is for 4 straight days out there, I got a phone call from a mortgage broker that I never talked to before back here in Sarasota. And each day he called and left a message. And I don't know why on day 3, he didn't realize, since I hadn't returned the first 2 calls, why I would return day 3. But then he called again on day 4. And so on stage, I did something kind of interesting. I took out my cell phone and I went to the text message and I wrote back, "One more time." That's all I did. Never heard from him again. I don't understand the philosophy of folks that do this. What this change is going to do is to try to protect consumers from this happening to them. Is that right?
I think that's exactly right. I think it's meant to both protect consumers from really the free sharing of their contact information to companies that are going to market to them mercilessly, and hopefully also instill some trust in the consumer.
It's all about, when I want information, I want to be able to get it from the source that I want to get it at. I don't want like 100 people calling me on that kind of thing. Here's something that's interesting. I have a new SUV on order. Rumor has it it's left Detroit. It's in process on its way down to Florida. In fact, it's not a rumor. It's true. It was last sighted in Ohio. So I'm getting anxious. But anyway, I have a car that I'm going to sell and I could trade it in or not. So I went out on a couple of websites and I put in the fact I'd like to get the value on what this Tesla Model X would be worth. I don't know what started it, but I'm getting phone calls right now from a lot of dealers that want to buy that car that were not given permission by me on that website to reach out to me. And like one woman who I finally took the call, she had called 5 times. And I just shared my philosophy. I said, the fact that you have badgered me so much, why do you think I would pick you? And she didn't have an answer for it, other than that's what she's been taught to do. So anyway, enough said. I've never liked this approach. I think it's wrong. I think we need to respect everyone who comes into our environment, whether it's an internet lead or however, and we need to work on their terms. Customer is king. I've always believed that. So this is going to try to tighten it up. The fines are going to be hefty with this. Now, one of the things I noticed in there, it used the word robocalls. If I put in my phone number in a website somewhere and it goes out to multiple people, can they just pick up? Does each person then have the ability to just pick up their phone call and call me directly? That's not a robocall, is it?
So it wouldn't be a robocall, just to be an individual. If you gave your contact information to a company and somebody picked up the phone and called you, that's okay. What the new change will do is also require a specific consent for robocalls, for essentially computers calling you. And then the whole world of artificial intelligence, it's a lot more commonplace than I think most people think. And so I think it's the FCC doing a really good job of staying on up to date on current technology and ways that companies use to market to people without their consent.
So again, these aren't rehearsed. This may be an unfair question because this is the understanding of this is being noodled over right now. So if I get a lead, get some information, and I don't use a robocalling tool, but I just call them. Does that get me out of trouble with this new changes? I didn't use a dialer kind of a thing. It's a one-on-one call.
If the consumer has given you the consent and
So
you
they
call,
still have to give me the consent. I can't just. So it's not really robocalls it prevents. It's trying to prevent all unwanted calls. Is that correct?
it's trying to prevent all unwanted calls. You have to specifically give consent to the company you want to contact you.
I like
And
that. I
if
like
you
that.
want, if you are agreeable to receiving robocalls, you have to give a consent specific to robocalls. So I have to say, I want Team Renick to contact me. And then I have to say again, I want Team Renick to contact me utilizing a robocall. And all of that is awesome. But what's even, I think, even better is the rule requires a reasonable, easy way to opt out. They don't require that you show up at 3 to 3:02 a.m. on the 5th Tuesday of the ninth month, fill out a form in triplicate and send it certified mail in order to opt out of a call list or a mailing list. Any reasonable method a consumer uses to opt out of future contact is okay. So if you tell the person on the phone, stop calling me, I'm sick of you, that's a reasonable method. You shoot them an email, it says, stop calling me. You call them back and you say, stop calling me. Anything that you do that a reasonable company should expect to receive a communication in a manner that they should expect to receive a communication is sufficient to revoke consent for future contact.
To me, this is just basic decency, if you would. I don't know how it ever got this far where, I mean, I can buy a lot of automation. We actually did a test one time where I could sit down in a 3 hour period and call 300 people. And I could have about 30 very intelligent conversations of people that took the calls and stuff like that. But of that list that we had, every one of them gave me permission to include them in the test. I would just never, we have 150 some thousand in the database that people have given us their information. I would just never go through and try to call 300 people like that. It's about, I as a consumer should be able to control what phone calls I have coming in, and I should be able to reach out and get the information that I need to make a good decision on whether I want to purchase a service or a product or learn about a technology. It's just gotten way out of line. It's interesting. Some of the top agents in the nation, in terms of converting internet leads, they talk about the good conversion rate today is less than 2%, but they make a whole lot of money on that. Okay. But what I ask them is, how did we upset the 98% that filled out the form and won't buy from us? There needs to be a whole mind shift in terms of respecting the consumer. When we reach out to someone, it's someone who's asked us for information. We respect the fact that they provided the information, whether it's through the internet or however, we met them in a grocery store or at a park or whatever. It's about servicing. So here's an example. I'm on my soapbox, so I apologize. You're in a store. Say you and I own a store, and a customer comes in and they're shopping, and we go up, can I help you? No, I'm just looking. Okay. So 2 minutes later, you go up. Can I help you? No, I'm just looking. So 2 minutes later, I go back up. Can I help you? That's what this 10 days of pain is all about. That's what all these robocalls are out. I mean, you can make a huge number of phone calls in a very short period of time. So I personally am glad to see this happening. I think there's still some vague areas here. We're getting some mixed messages, what we can and can't do. Here at Team Renick, we are not going to do the wrong thing. I'm not interested in calling people that don't want to be talked to. I'm not interested in calling people to badger them. Where they, I was in college for a lot of years. I have a master's degree. And I missed the day in business school that taught us where we badger customers to get more business. That's a good approach. It just doesn't work. It doesn't make sense. So I'm happy to see this. I'm hoping that this achieves what they're looking for in terms of stopping a lot of this stuff. Even like elections, we get political robocalls all the time. Those should cease here, because I can't remember any time I signed up and says, oh, please send me all kinds of calls from this party or that party, because I've never done that.
It'll hopefully be a better, more equitable world of having people contact you. The current world we live in, you can go to website A and they then, let's say, give your information to person B and person C. You can say, I don't want to be contacted anymore, but you're likely only telling person B
Mm-hmm.
because of the way it's split right now. You give your name one time and there is no great way to opt out because your name is sold 500 times and you have to tell each of the 500 companies to stop contacting you. So it will be, I think, a much better situation.
So the law starts January 27th, if my memory serves me correctly. Hopefully, most folks will abide by it, and we won't have the kind of problems that are going on right now. We all have secondary email addresses and stuff like that we use because of all the spam emails we get and stuff like that. I rarely give the Mike at Team Renick email address when I want information. And I legitimately want information. When I bought an e-bike, I legitimately wanted information, but I didn't want to get spammed by a lot of different companies. So I use my backup email, so it goes there. Hopefully all that stuff is going to stop. But I personally am excited about this. And we intend to follow the full compliance of this thing from day one. In fact, we've been following it informally in terms of not using all these ways to reach out to people that don't really want to talk to us right now.
But we should really look at the negatives too, Mike, right? So when you're in the mall, and if anybody goes to the mall anymore,
Is that bad word called shopping? Oh,
you may have heard of it. And there's the new car that you can get if you just fill out your name on the little sheet of paper with your phone number and your email address. In theory, that won't exist anymore because the whole market of selling and reselling people's information to contact them should, in theory, dry up. So for that one lucky winner who is going to get that car, this just is not a good day for them. I think we should think of everybody.
So you've come up with a whole new idea for a podcast, the word shopping. Let's say I want to buy an over-the-counter allergy medicine. There's a drugstore, CVS, right across the street from where I live. Do I get in the car and go over there? No, I go on Amazon and order it. And sometimes I get it the same day, if not the next morning.
Probably
So,
for a lesser price.
So a mall, I'm not sure I remember what that concept is. And of course, I'm kidding. But that whole paradigm is changing. And maybe we do a podcast on that. What are brick and mortar stores going to do to keep clients coming over? Because it's a lot more convenient to order something, and it's also many times less expensive just to order it online. And with the very fair return policies and stuff like that, it's worked out well. But that's another conversation for all about this, Mike. And I'm really glad you joined me on these. Business has to be done the right way. That's how you build your company. It's about people will buy from people that they know, love, and trust. It's that simple. And I can't make the connection for all these unwanted phone calls building any of that kind of rapport. They do get to know you, but I don't think that's enough. So we'll see more to follow. Is there anything we've overlooked on this, Michael?
There's a lot of the nitty gritty, but I think we got a good high level view of the change that's coming. Hopefully companies implement it and we have a better experience for the consumer.
We'll have to come back maybe in a few weeks to do an update on how this is working. I know a lot of times when laws are passed, the actual outcome is a little bit different than the intended outcome. But we'll find out. Hopefully in this case, it's not, and this thing goes off the way it should.
That sounds great.
And Michael, thank you. I appreciate your honest and candor as always. And we'll negotiate how long your intro for the next one will be.
Sounds like a plan. I'll need representation.
Sounds good. Michael, thank you. Take care.
Thank you.